We got a whale of a show for you guys today. We'll be joined in just a few short minutes by the one and only Paul Lee, NHRA Nitro Funny Car Superstar, fresh off his first win at the NHRA Arizona Nationals. Guys, let's do this. Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Hope you're doing well out there. And of course, thank you so much for joining us here on the Wes Buck Show so we can dive into all things drag racing. Huge shout out to today's show presenting sponsor, the one and only Redline Synthetic Oils. Happy birthday to our buddy Mark Beatty, who leads the charge there in the motorsports marketing department. We appreciate all he does for not only Drag Illustrated, but the entire sport of drag racing. We've got a ton of stuff to cover. We are in the throes of the drag racing season. It's crazy how we go from it's the middle of winter to, oh my goodness, there's a drag race going on every single weekend and sometimes multiple ones. We've got a slew of big events coming up. Of course, the NHRA rolling into Pomona for the NHRA Winter Nationals. We also are a little over a week away from the PDRA season opener out at Galot Motorsports Park. And of course, one of the most talked about happenings in the sport of drag racing recently, Big Jake's March Mania 5 going down this weekend at Extreme Raceway Park outside Dallas, Texas. A slew of big names there, a ton of heavy hitters, and a bunch of big money grudge races, as well as 100,000 to win shootout. But before we dive into all of those things, let me introduce you to my co-host here on the Wes Buck Show, the one and only Mike Carpenter. What's up, big dog? Oh, you're rocking a Snowbird shirt. What's up?
Throwback to December.
Throwback, yeah, to 3 months ago. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Let's get right into some of this drag racing stuff. I want to save a lot of the NHRA Arizona Nationals kind of breakdown and reaction till when we get Paul Lee here on the show a little bit after 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. But there was a post made on social media recently, an article that was published by Speed Sport News, where Antron Brown was kind of calling for seemingly a little more trash talk, a little more animation in the pro pits at drag races. I think the exact quote Antron gave, who is a extremely, mild-mannered, well-spoken, even-keeled individual, excitable for sure. But it was an interesting comment to hear from Antron Brown, someone as polished as Antron Brown. But basically, he was calling for NHRA, the men and women of the NHRA professional categories, to kind of quit being so much so Mr. and Mrs. Nice Man or nice guy or gal. And I'm just kind of curious, like your initial reaction to that. It's really gone crazy on our social media. There's tons of commentary, a lot of shares. So it's clearly something that resonates with the masses. What's your kind of take on this call for trash talk?
I mean, we've been calling for it for a while, right? I feel like this is something that we've kind of been beating the drum on. And I saw the post and I haven't really followed it to see like what kind of traction it's getting, but it doesn't surprise me. I do think we're seeing a little bit of a corner being turned in that regard. Like, I think people are finally embracing this. We talked about this on our conference call on Monday. We noticed that NHRA tended to be doing more interviews at the top end with losers or people that had something happen, not just the winners. We've talked about that a lot too, how you've got to, like, if you really want to show this emotion and you want to get a raw reaction, you can't just show the winners. So we saw like Angel stick the mic in Ricky Smith's face, and we got that reaction from him about the, having to go out there with no hit at the track before they get kind of thrown into E1 for Gainesville. We saw a couple different things. They talked to Alex Laughlin, I think, after he failed to qualify, and then they talked to a slew of the Nitro and Pro Stock guys after they had things happen. So I think that's kind of a start to it. I mean, don't you kind of think that maybe we're starting to see more of that and embracing that? And if someone that is as heavily polished, like you say, and corporate sponsored and everything like Antron is, and so visible with like worldwide brands like Toyota and Matco and everything, if he's kind of calling for it, I think that says a lot.
I couldn't agree more. And it is the thing that has surprised me about it is just how polarizing this conversation seems to be. And I said on this show many years ago, I remember one of the first calls I ever had with the television production studio, trying to work a deal. This is many moons ago, but they told me that they had looked at drag racing before, but they felt it was too squeaky clean for its own good. And I just never was really able to let go of what that lady said to me. As she said, we've looked at drag racing and we've thought about all these various things with drag racing and we've talked to all sorts of people, but we keep coming back to the fact that it's really hard to produce, meaningful television, what gets people to watch, with such a squeaky clean environment. And I think there's some real truth to that. I mean, I've really resonated on that a lot over the years, and I've kind of seen it, in recent memory kind of reach what I felt was like kind of an all-time high as far as just kind of scripted interviews and scripted reactions and really muted reactions. And I wonder if you were watching the NHRA broadcast this weekend, let us know in the comments, because we'd really like to know, like, if you noticed any differences, because I too noticed that Erica Enders is on camera after an early loss, and Alexis DeJoria, another one, goes out with a red light. I think she was like 040 red, and they got a camera right in her face. And I actually think that this is a big step in the right direction. And I think do you agree? Because it's weird that trash talk is like such a bad word, so to speak, or like such a bad phrase, or has such negative connotation around it. And I think what we really mean to say is we want to see more emotion, good, bad, or otherwise. I don't know that it's necessarily that I need to see Antron Brown talking trash about Steve Torrance or Mike Salinas or what have you. I think what we need to see is more overt and energy and emotion and reactions from these people. And it's kind of gotten to a point where it's already predetermined kind of what you say in your interview. You're of course going to think, God, and thank your sponsors and whatnot. And the guys back in the shop. I mean, it's kind of a joke at this point that the winner's circle interview is so canned. And I think what we're asking for kind of as a mass is more emotion. It's not necessarily that we need to hear anything bad. We just need to get, I see you guys hear me say it all the time, but like, I just want to see them. They've got to let me know they care, right? Because why would I care if they don't seem to care? And I think that when you see those canned interviews and kind of the nonchalant, yeah, we'll get them next time, it's hard for me to be invested in that if that's all that you seem to care about, is like, we'll get them next time, no big deal. So I don't know that it's necessarily trash talking.
I really don't think you get that. I mean, I don't think you get we'll get them next time. I think that's kind of the point of getting I call them losers. I don't mean any of these people are losers, but the losers of the round. I don't really see that reaction when you stick the microphone in a round loser's face. They tend to be a little more animated. It's when you stick the mic in the winner's face that you get the God, crew, I'm just racing the racetrack, all those things. So I think that probably the easiest way to remedy this in the short term is to just give more camera time to those people. And again, not necessarily people that blow up and crash. I think those people get airtime no matter what, but just hey, there was a lot on the line there, or you were, going rounds and now you're out. What's your outlook moving forward or whatever? And you'll probably get more reactions. So I like it. And I really like what we've seen so far out of the first two races for NHRA. I know we said we're going to save some of this talk for when Paul gets on here, but just from watching the NHRA TV broadcast and seeing some of the stuff that they're doing and treating that more as like a standalone streaming product instead of just an add-on, and then having that track audio, some of that stuff I think is good, because there's a lot more airtime. That thing's on all day. There's a lot more time to work into these interviews with people that we may not get to see on the Fox broadcast, because they're moving at a rapid clip, trying to squeeze as much as they can in that limited window. When you kind of have the free flowing all day deal, kind of like what we do with Flow, it gives you a lot more leeway to throw these bits in there, and you've got more, I guess, downtime, for lack of a better word, with this stuff. So I like that approach so far.
Yeah, no, I I agree. I think Fox and NHRA have really, there's clearly been a shift in like their attention and where what things are they're focusing on, and we're going to get more of the killer sound bites from some of those guys and gals that go out early, and you're going to get a more natural response or a more natural reaction. But it is, to me, I do think there's just this weird, it doesn't have to be either or, right? And because I think that, again, I don't know that Antron is calling for trash talk. I think Antron is calling for more raw emotion, more,
he knows
more
it. And
off the
Antron
cuff.
shows raw emotion.
He does.
So whether it's good or bad, and Antron races in a lot of different arenas. He races with us in the Winter Series. So he's exposed to a lot of different things. And I think that he probably is using his platform to voice this. Jimmy Dale's in the comments right now saying something that I think we've talked about in the past, that do you think that they're scared to lose their support, their sponsorship, if they say what they really want to? And I do believe that that's been a big factor in this up until now. And I think maybe what's changed, and maybe someone like Antron could speak on, is these sponsors are now saying, hey, that's what we want. We want you to be yourself. We want you to say what you want to say. You're not going to lose us for saying, now don't go out there and go crazy and go Kanye on us or something like that, but go, within reason, speaking your mind is okay, and we're going to stand behind you. So I think we've seen more of that too. I think we've seen sponsors, media, broadcasters, everybody kind of open up and say, let's take the reins off, let's take the cuffs off a little bit, and allow these people to speak. And actually, you threw that second one up there. Someone say they don't like it, and that drag racing has always been a family sport or a family thing. I agree with them to a degree, but I don't know about you, man. The image that's projected of drag racing on TV or on these broadcasts is vastly different than what's going on in the pits. I mean, I feel like drag racing is a pretty rough around the edges, raw, say what you feel. There's a lot of, it's very uncensored in the pits and behind the scenes. And then it's like when we go up there on the big stage, then we're trying to be too PC and they're
I think they lean away from who they actually are. They're going up there and they're trying to do what they think corporate America would want or what the masses would want. I think it's partially like just a part of this whole woke culture and all the, everybody's up in arms anytime anything gets said and it becomes this big to do. But again, I go back to like, how can we make people care about what we're doing? And as long as the conversation remains so focused on what happens on the track and no personal emotions, know what this means to me, I think the sport will struggle. I think what we need is more raw emotion and more people kind of saying what they think and living with the consequences. And you don't have to look very far for great examples, right? Like of the people that have cut through by saying what they are and expressing what they're actually feeling, not what they think people want to hear or what their sponsors want to hear, but saying what's on their mind. And that's really, I think the call to action is for people to be themselves, be their authentic version of themselves and put themselves out there and live with the consequences. And you're going to have people that love you, hate you, somewhere in between. But all of that is progress in the right direction, is just getting more people to care about what's happening out here on the racetrack. And once you get them over that hump and they're invested in a driver or they're invested in a team or whatever, then you can start talking tech terminology and all that. But despite a sport that's been around for 100 years, I feel like we're really early in all of this. Like there's a lot of fertile soil that we're walking around on. And I think there's a lot for our sport to accomplish and a lot of room for growth, especially considering how far we've gotten without some of the things that we're talking about. And there have been moments, right, in the past. I think about some of the classic interviews from 70s, 80s, and 90s drag racing, whether it's Warren Johnson and Scott Jeffreyon getting chippy, or Tony Pedregon and John Force getting chippy, or Lee Beard getting chippy with John Force over Whit Bazemore stuff. I mean, Al Hoffman and Force. But I mean, have you noticed that like multiple people I've named, like I've said the same name several times, John Force, but I've also named some people that still to this day, 20 years after their significant contribution to the sport, they're still who we're talking about. Like Warren Johnson, the professor, like he had an air about him and he was himself and he was not bashful about it. And he was a little prickly and not everybody loved Warren, but everybody respected him. And I think that to me is, I think you earn that respect by being yourself, and you kind of get people to say, hey, that's who he is. That's how he acts, right? That's just the way he is. That's okay.
You got to back it up. I think you got to be able to back it up on the track.
You do.
Like,
you do have
I
to
mean,
be able to
Warren
back it up.
is probably the greatest example of that. I mean, he did plenty of backing up on the track, but even guys that may have had a shorter career or less accomplished career, like a Whit Bazemore, who was successful, no doubt, in his own right and was a star at his peak. But we talk about him forever, and he's still one of the most polarizing people you could ever talk about in drag racing because of his persona. And then he went toe to toe with the ultimate fan favorite, John Force. And so we're still talking about him to this day, no matter the career he had or not. So it definitely.
Al Hoffman is another one that I think, who would Al Hoffman have been without his on-track rivalries with John Force? Like, and I think that those things are something that we really kind of overlook or tend to forget about or look at through a warped vision. We need people that are willing to put themselves out there and, again, lean into the outlaw, rebel, rough around the edges nature of drag racing instead of lean away from it, instead of try to be something we're not. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad that it's being talked about, and just so that people, that kind of pressure is being put on our drivers. Like, and that's the world we live in. I think that everybody can be respectful in the locker room or, in the pits, right? Everybody's respectful, and all these guys want to help one another and would happily help one another. And not everybody, but by and large, the rule of thumb is that their drag racing is a fantastic community of people and everybody's willing to help themselves. But to Bo's point, Bo Gentile watching, you need good guys and bad guys. You need white hats and black hats, and you need some people that are willing to embrace those roles. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. I think once we see Tony Stewart have some more measurable success as a driver, we're going to see some more of that from him. And I don't think it's, he's a guy that's kind of coming into this sport at a weird time in his life. And, he was recently Rookie of the Year, which it's weird to even say Tony Stewart's name and the word rookie in close proximity together. But once we see him start to rack up some round wins and get a couple of race wins under his belt, which I think he's on the cusp of, I think that could be a driving force when he's on camera more. I hope, I think he's always going to be respectful because he's got so much admiration for everybody.
Yeah. I think he's kind of like, not on a mission, but I think he's really kind of turned a corner, like putting that persona, that era behind him. And now that he's like older, wiser, new father, married, like really loving what he's doing now, in control, running his own team. Yeah. He's like way, way more chill. I mean, we got to know Tony over the last couple of years. And at first we were like, oh shit, like you're intimidated. Like you're worried about what you're going to say, how this guy's going to react. You're kind of just going off those decades in NASCAR, but he's a totally different person. And what
do you think of this commentary? Because it kind of falls along those same lines. Also, Max Verstappen is just about as blunt as can be, says Drag Racing Mayhem, and no sponsor thinks about leaving him. I don't buy that argument. I do think part of the problem is we have very few hired drivers in the sport these days. How much do you think that contributes to it? I mean, I think that's I would love to see a world where we had more hired gun drivers, but I think until we see more and more events that pay big money and get huge fan turnouts and get big viewership online, you kind of got to create that scenario where it makes sense.
But you got to be so good.
Someone in
you
got
to be so good. You got to be
so good.
That's what it is. That's what Verstappen. He just knows at this point he's so good that if Red Bull was to drop him, he would be at the next best team the next day within minutes. So that's not the case for our drag racers. Unfortunately, they work a lot of times are behind the scenes working to sell sponsorship for the next race and to get to the next race, especially at these Nitro and pro stock levels. So these guys, once they get there, they're very, very mindful and very protective of it. We've talked about, I think we did a show early on where we literally spent the whole show talking about this exact thing.
Yeah. Chris Costanza has a solid comment here. The last time this "we need more excitement" conversation came up not too long ago, Steve Torrance went after Cameron Ferret and made himself look like a fool. This is the last time the combo came up, and it fizzled away since then. I was actually big on Steve Torrance's defense during all of that. We actually had him on the show and we talked about it a lot because I felt like that maybe is an example of when it goes too far, obviously. But I think we also, like, my takeaway from it was that's how bad Steve Torrance wanted to win a world championship, that he saw somebody get in his way and was pissed about it. And I was completely okay with it. Does it need to get physical? Absolutely not. It's 2025. We don't need to be fighting in the streets. However, my takeaway from it was here's a dude who wants to win really bad enough that he's willing to fight for it. And I'm not totally against it. Like I said, I don't want to see, fisticuffs in the pits. I don't think we need that. I think we're all better than that. However, I do love to see somebody demonstrate to me and the masses how much this means to him. Like that was my takeaway from it. Like right, wrong, or indifferent, no matter where you stand on it. Because there are people that were saying should have whooped his ass, blah, 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 all these things. To me, the takeaway was this is a great example of how much it means to him.
But that's that immediate stick a microphone or a camera on you. As soon as you jump out of the car, you're going to get some fireworks there that you're not going to get even just minutes later. And especially maybe back in the pits when they've got their crew to a chance to talk to them and calm them down. But you get those moments as soon as that car makes the turn and comes to a stop. Like that right there is the most explosive moment, for better or for worse, which is kind of the double-edged sword that we're talking about.
Because I see, to really flip it to the other side of the world, so to speak, in drag racing, we've got Big Jake's March Mania coming up this weekend at Extreme Raceway Park outside Dallas, Texas. This is one of the biggest events in the area as far as drag racing is concerned. Be thousands of people out there, hundreds of racers, and you talk about a place where trash talking. Yeah, I'm going out. Yeah, I'm going to go. There's a bunch of Grudge races. I believe Justin Swanstrom has like 5 races locked in on Thursday. Jimmy Dale's got a Grudge race locked in for right after first round. So there's a slew of, there's a lot of action going on out there. But where I was headed with this is that you talk about a place where trash talk is like the second language. They're talking trash to one another for months in advance on social media, and then intensely face to face at the racetrack.
I mean,
it's built around trash talk.
I mean, I don't want to say it's nothing, but literally that's what the whole thing is built around. That's why all those people are going to be out there this weekend to immerse themselves in that. So it's like, that is the culture.
Well, I mean, and I just think back to I would argue that one of the biggest drag racing moments of 2024 was Travis Harvey going up against, and Fletcher Cox going up against Justin Swanstrom and those guys, the $100,000 Grudge race, right? I mean, this thing got millions of views online. It was all the talk. Everybody was talking about it. One run for $100,000. It was crazy. And the interest in it was rooted entirely in all the videos of trash talking and the yelling and screaming that was going on. And again, I don't know that we've got to go all the way that way.
Aside in riding too. It's like about being so polarizing that no one, you almost get a feeling like you can't be in the middle. You can't I just want to see a good drag race. Just want to see 2 guys just put them in the beams and run them heads up. Like we hear that a lot in drag racing. No, it was about everything but that. And it was whether you're watching online, whether you're on the crew, you're there on the grounds. If you weren't on a side, you might as well not be there. Like everyone was forced to kind of pick that side. And I think that's why it's such a popular deal. It's almost like, the following like major sports teams have, where it's like you're diehard, you're picking a side and you're riding, and whether you've won or lost, you're sticking with it. And now you want the rematch. You want to run it back. We saw Fletcher. It's like they're not even, the scoreboards aren't even off at that point, or haven't even made the turn off. And Fletcher wants action. He wants to run it back. And so that's really what it's about.
And it's a great debate, because Tom Grooms makes a great point here. And this has been my experience with Grudge racing in the past. Like when I would go out to Darlington or go to the House of Hook in Aiken, South Carolina for a big Grudge race, I would go out there and I was always kind of disappointed because there'd be all this talk about these races that would ultimately not happen. Nobody, it was locked in. Somebody paid the punk out and they didn't want to do it. So boy, they're done. Right. And, that was kind of the lackluster part of it. So I think they're like so many things, the answer is somewhere in the middle, right? The answer is somewhere in the middle, where you toe into those waters and let the emotion be a part of it, but maybe don't get so far. And I think that's why we've seen the rise of these small tire or no time shootouts, right? Because the promoters and the track owners had to ensure that if they were selling tickets to a show, there was going to be a show. So they started putting together these no time shootouts.
Change. I think that's been the big change with these shootouts and with the internet and allowing everyone to kind of get on there, make their own content, stream, do whatever. That's been the rise of these shootouts, and the fact that you're going to see the race. I think that like you're talking about though, in the old days, it's like, man, how can you tow all the way there? How can you make the commitment as a fan to go and then not see a race? And so despite all the stakes and the reasons why those guys had behind not running at this point, I think that has been the big change that's really boosted that deal.
No, I agree 100%, but I do think that there's like some sort of middle ground to be had between, off the rails trash talking and yelling and screaming and like meaningful emotion that is demonstrating to fellow competitors as well as the fan base how much all of this stuff means to you. And I got to tell you, Mike, speaking of how much something means to you, I'm super excited about our first and only guest of the day today. I wanted to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room so we could have a meaningful conversation with this next gentleman. But before we dive into that, I do want to take a second and remind each and every one of you that today's episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. Mike, let's get right into this deal. We've got the man of the hour.
Do we want to play the video?
Yeah, you know what? Let's relive this moment together, and then we'll bring the champ on here real quick. Let's throw this up.
The weather we have right now, you better show up with a tune-up that has.
This is a cool shot right here, helicopter shot.
I love that shot.
I need to use that more.
It shows scale. It shows scale of the event. Paul dog walked him. Poor guy. That was a rough day for Austin Prock right there.
A great win for this team. 313 miles an hour.
029 Savage.
What a breakthrough for this guy.
Here with John Medlin has done so many things in your career. You've now helped deliver a win to Paul Lee. How much went into this victory?
Breathtaking to me. It's a big deal because this is the anniversary of Eric passing away this day today. And we saw more fours on that scoreboard than I've ever seen in my entire life. So I think he just took his thumb and he pushed that car right into the winner's circle.
Amazing moment, and I know you have deep feelings about that, Eric being here today, and now you have scored a win. We are thinking of you. Tremendous victory. Congratulations, John.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I think we're going to go down to the top end with a man of Yusuf.
Said off camera, I had a feeling about today as the Wale goes in the hands for the first time ever for Paul Lee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Paul, 18 years ago, we lost a brilliant light in Eric Medlin, and you just delivered John Medlin and Johnny Lindbergh a win here in Phoenix, and yourself a Wally as a funny car driver. Could you have scripted it any better for yourself?
I don't think so. I think this is like a dream come true. I mean, today was just surreal. I mean, the whole pit was calm. We were calm all day. We prayed that Eric was with us, and he was. And I'm going to tell you something. This trophy is going right to John Medlin on the starting line because we are blessed to have a guy like him still in the sport and help all our young guys learn the sport of drag racing. So God bless John, and thanks to all our partners, Mainline Sales, McLeod, FTI, Gates, Redline Oil, Justice Brothers. This is for you guys. Thank you. Yeah.
What a moment, Mikey.
Very cool.
Very cool moment. So without any further ado, let's bring the man of the hour on. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one, the only, fresh off a win, his first career Nitro Funny Car win at the NHRA Arizona Nationals, the one and the only Paul Lee. What's up, Paul?
Hey, guys.
What's up, man?
Man, we're happy to be chatting with you. Thanks for joining us. You're probably doing a worldwide press tour, phones melting down, can't keep up with all this insanity.
Yeah, it's been surreal. Like I said, I mean, the whole day was surreal, and you know, I don't know, I don't know what to say. It was emotional being that special day, and we won the first round with 4-4-4. I mean, how do you explain all that?
That's
crazy. Really hard to explain.
I was thinking about this before the show, and maybe you can pinpoint some of these moments, but I feel like since Eric's passing, when we get to this anniversary of it happening around this time of year, there's been other things like this happen where he shows his presence. And I think there's been maybe some crashes where it seems like it could have been a lot worse and it wasn't. But I feel like every few years we get this reminder of Eric, and maybe it's through John himself and his continued presence in the sport. But it seems like this is not the first time, but maybe this is the most visible example we have of his presence still in the sport.
Well, how about that first round crash with Ron Capps? I mean, it's eerily similar to, something that happened with Eric, even though it wasn't exactly the same thing. He had that crash, and then John had his crash earlier this year, and Ron, we did all this extra padding, which is really tight in that area, but you really feel safe in there with all that. I don't know if you guys have seen the cars yet, but that extra padding all around your head, you can only move your head a little bit, and it's pretty soft, and it feels safe. And look at Ron, he hit the wall really hard, and he walked away. I mean, how far we've come in 18 years is pretty amazing safety wise.
It really is amazing. Paul, you said something in your post-race interview that it reminded me of some stories that we've had Clay Millican tell us just about like the perseverance that is required. You talked about this is something that you've been working towards since you were 13 years old. I don't want to air out dirty laundry, but that was, damn near 50 years ago, Paul.
Yeah.
And
it says 50 years in the press release. So that's
okay.
That's
so, all right. 50 years ago. So can you just give us a glimpse into the mindset and like your personal modus operandi, if you will, for how you sustain the effort that you've sustained for 5 decades, waiting to get this monkey off your back? I mean, I think there's a lot of people that have probably fought battles, whether it's in their business or their personal lives or whatever, that they think are, they're never going to see the other side. And I think it's just such a great reminder that you got to keep going when you see someone such as yourself pursue a goal for 50 years and finally cross the bridge. I mean, can you bottle that up and sell it to us, or at least tell us where to get it?
When I was a kid, I grew up at the racetrack going at Atco Dragway. I grew up in New Jersey, and my uncle raced A-Gas Supercharged back in the 60s. Now, he wasn't like a big hitter or anything, but he was a local guy, local hero around Atco Dragway. And I remember my mom dragging us to Atco, watching him back in the 60s race. So I kind of grew up at the racetrack, but it wasn't until I was in my teens where I went to a match race at Atco and saw Jungle Jim Lieberman and all the Nitro funny cars of the 70s. And to me, the 70s was the heyday of funny cars. I mean, and the first time I saw a Nitro funny car, I remember it. It's got goosebumps. It's like yesterday. It's like, that's what I want to do with my life. That's what I want to do. So everything that I've ever done in my life has been geared towards that goal and just never given up. I recognized a long time ago, back in the 80s, that being a professional driver, at first you want to be a professional driver, right? Like Jungle Jim and Tom McEwen and the Snake and all that. You want to be a driver, but then in the mid 80s, I saw Don Perdome sat out because he didn't have sponsorship. Shirley Muldowney sat out because she didn't have. Same thing with Don Garlitz, right? These are the greatest drag racers that in our history
ever lived.
And they couldn't get sponsors. So who am I? Like, how am I going to be a professional racer? So I switched my goals to, like, if I want to do this someday and reach my goals of being a Nitro funny car champion, which finally came, I was going to have to do it a different way. So my idols changed to Connie Coletta and Joe Amato. They were the guys because they were successful businessmen, and Joe Amato was sort of in the Northeast where I grew up, Keystone Automotive Warehouse, right? And those guys controlled their own destiny in racing. I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I went, I did everything I could. I went to business school. I went to law school. I got as much education as I could so I could, kind of control my own destiny. Now, am I on the level of a Connie or a Joe Amato? No, but on my own terms in our business, we've been successful enough where I can keep pursuing this goal and having that never give up attitude. I mean, it's a lot of times it's disappointing, when you put all the money in the time and all these years, the dedication, and it doesn't come about. But I've never had the attitude where I'm going to give up doing it. I mean, once you dedicate your life to it, that's your life, right? It's, there's nothing else that I want to reach besides the business goals, which, we're doing really well. I'm blessed to have the business and all the 150 employees that we have with the companies. Without that, I couldn't do this, but it's just never given up, even though in the face of all that disappointment, you just got to keep going.
I remember back when you had just kind of made you were going to make a big push into Nitro funny car, a satellite car from out of the DSR shop and all these things. And you're buying bodies and spending big money to prepare yourself for a championship run. And that's been a few years ago now. Right. And so what has that process been like? I mean, how many times in the last several years were you ever like at the brink of saying, you know what, maybe this isn't for me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a couple of times. When we first did it, you know, in 2018 is when I first drove the car again after my heart attack, where the doctor signed off on me and said, okay, yeah, you can do this again. Oh, then it's like, well, you know, what am I going to do? Am I going to, you know, join a team? But there really wasn't any teams for me to join. So it's sort of, I had to like do my own deal. And of course, Don Schumacher, bless the guy. He, you know, said, hey, Paul, you know, anything you guys want to do, just let me know what you need, and we'll supply you with everything. And you could be a satellite car at DSR. And that's what Jimmo and I did. Jimmo, who I was friends with for many years, and I drove that short time at Coletta before my heart attack. So I got to be real close with Jimmo. And when he left, he was the logical choice to help me put this together because he had experience in doing that. So we went to Don, and Don helped us put it all together. And, you know, we rent space at DSR, and we've been there ever since. But, you know, yeah, and we didn't do very good. Okay, so we come out of the box. We just didn't do very good. We smoked the tires a lot. And so then I, you know, go fast forward 2 years. I go a different direction, give somebody, you know, young guys. I said, you know, I don't mind giving young guys a chance, right? So we go that way, and that didn't work out either. So I was like, man, I'm just going to park this car. We were about midway through the year. We just couldn't get down the track. And so I called John Medlin, and I've known John a long time. He had just retired, right? And I talked to John. I said, John, he says, can you come out and, you know, have another set of eyes on what the guys are doing? We're just having issues, and I'm spending lots of money. We got all the best parts that money can buy, but we're just not getting it done. Can you, you know, give a look, come out and look? And he goes, well, Paul, he says, you know, I'm retired, but let me talk to Martha, his wife. And she said, and see if I'll come out and just give a look. I don't want to be a crew chief anymore, but I'll come out and I'll give a look. So he came to Bristol, was the first race, and luckily it was driving distance. Came out to the race and look around, and we didn't qualify for that race either. And then he went to the shop, you know, worked with the guys, looked at all the parts, went through a lot of issues. He found a whole bunch of problems and started getting the car straightened out, right? By the end of the year, we started actually, you know, running pretty good at the end of that year. But then situation changed with my crew chief that was at the time. He was going to go in a different direction. But if John didn't come out that time, I was parking the car. I was done. I was done spending all that money and not having fun. It wasn't fun. It's not fun when you smoke the tires every time. You know, so it's like, you know, you want to make it down the track. Even if it's a 4.0, you know, you want to give your sponsors and your fans something to cheer for, right? But, you know, let's not try to run 380. Let's try to run 4.0 and go down the track.
Forward progress. Making some just small forward progress. Yeah. But you talked about that in your winter interview too, though. You talked about John being willing to come out and do that and kind of put eyes or train some of these younger crew guys and crew chiefs. And you've had some younger guys, and then you've got still a relatively young guy in Johnny Lindberg that he's, you know, able to I guess mentor and to work with as a 1-2 punch. So you're still kind of doing that same thing, but with the guidance of John Medlin.
Well, you know how that came about. So by the end of that first year, he had come out and he goes, Paul, you know, at the end of the year, we you know, he was staying with me no matter what the news said. He was going to stay with me, and we were going to go in a different direction with someone. And he said, you know, he came to me, he says, Paul, I haven't had this much fun drag racing in 10 years. I found out that I really enjoy teaching. He goes, that's my new goal. I want to give back to the sport by teaching young crew chiefs and the young guys and the girls on the team the right way of doing their jobs, right? So he found a new purpose. He told me, he said, I have a new purpose now. And now I want to give back I don't want to be a crew chief, but I want to be a teacher. So he stayed on as a consultant. And then Johnny Lindberg contacted me. I was deciding, you know, what am I going to do here? And then Johnny contacted me. He says, hey, you know, he goes, I want to be a crew chief. I want to be a Nitro crew chief. And he goes, I would love to learn under John Medlin. So the first, you know, indication of a good anybody, whether it's an employee or someone on your team that guys want to join you, is they want to do it, right? You want guys that want to do this, not like are forced into it or whatever. But so I called John Medlin and I said, John, Johnny Lindberg's interested in being our crew chief and learning from you. He won't do it unless you're going to teach him. You know, Johnny Lindbergh's, you know, I have to give him a lot of credit. He goes, you know, I've never done this before, but I believe I can do it. But I think that I can learn from John. I won't do it unless John can teach me. And so talked about it. And John Medlin said, you know, that guy's really smart. That's a perfect choice. So let's do it. So that happened really quick. And then that's how it started. And John Medlin's been our consultant and teacher, mentor to the whole team. And that's how that started.
That, like, what an awesome story. And I mean, thank God for that, because that's a conversation that comes up here on this show quite a bit, is like, who are those next guys? Who's the next Alan Johnson? Who's the next Bernie Federley or Austin Coyle? And we're certainly seeing them pop up, right? I mean, we've got some big name crew chiefs and some guys that are relatively young, but it's kind of an interesting conversation. Where's that next group of superstar tuners going to come from? And to hear a story like that, it kind of makes you proud, like that John Medlin, because a lot of times finding that purpose is the most important part of this whole deal. And him finding, you know, passion and purpose in teaching Yanni and the whole crew is pretty amazing, man. Like, that makes me feel good about, like, the world. You know what I mean? That there's still people like that out there.
To see John telling me that I haven't had this much fun in 10 years drag racing, says my new purpose is doing this. And I'm glad that he gets to do that and gives back to our sport that we all love, right? And you know, like you said, we're the next, you know, there's not enough crew chiefs in this sport, let's face it. And for him to be able to give back and teach a couple of these new guys going forward, that's awesome for our sport.
It's fantastic and much needed.
Yeah. Did you think you would never get to that magic combination? Like you talked about the struggles, or, you know, parking the car and really not finding the combination, but now you seem to have found it. And I mean,
yeah, it was pretty frustrating. Yeah, it was frustrating. And
yeah,
I wasn't going to park the car because of the money part. I was going to park it because I just wasn't doing any good and not having any fun. And I don't do this for a living. I'm not a professional drag racer, right? This is my hobby. But, you know, I'm lucky enough to be able to get out there and promote our companies, you know, McLeod, FTI, Silver Sport, you know, and Comp Clutch now, and using the race car as a tool. So I'm pretty lucky when it comes to that. But yeah, there was many times it's like, man, I just, you know, you get disappointed. You know, there's only so much disappointment you can take. But then, you know,
it's hard to do. It's a hard sport if you're not having fun. We say that it's too much work, costs too much money if you're not having fun. So do you guys feel like, do you feel like you've turned a corner now? I mean, do you feel that this was the proof you needed to see, or the whole team needed to see to believe? It's like, once you win,
you know you can do it. Like, now you know you can do it.
Yeah,
I mean, you know how we ended up last year. You know, the back half of the year turned out really strong. I mean, it was the first year that Johnny Lindbergh was a crew chief, right? He's making the calls, no mistake about it. You know, he bounces stuff off of John Medlin. But at the end of the day, Johnny Lindbergh is making the calls. And for him, in the very first year of doing this, going out and run low 380s and going to a couple finals, winning the All-Star call out, you know, qualifying in the top 5 consistently, that's credit to him. I mean, you know, putting it all together now, you know, it's the best Nitro funny car team that I've ever been a part of. And I just, you know, that chemistry with all the right people, right? You need all the right people. And we have all our team back from last year. No one left. And that hardly ever happens, where crew guys, especially in Brownsburg, they start switching teams. That, you know, a lot of guys will leave for $1 an hour extra, right? Well, this year we did not have anybody leave our team. Everybody believed in what we're doing. And that chemistry really helped in this last race this past weekend, because everybody did their job like they've been there together for 10 years. And it was amazing to see. No mistakes. We were the first ones into the staging lanes every run, even though we were the last ones to run. They just did a great job. I mean, you can't ask for more than that. For me, you know, it's pretty satisfying to finally have this kind of chemistry.
And much deserved. Like, we talk about this all the time, that, like, you know, internally, we're so blessed to have, like, so many people that pour all this time and energy and resources into our sport, and we need them to see some success. You know what I mean? We need the Paul Lees of the world to win some races and do well so that they continue doing this, you know, and it's like such a shot in the arm for, like, obviously yourself and your race team, but really the entire industry. I think it's a nice reminder that it's possible, that you may struggle for years and years and years, but it is possible to have those breakthrough moments.
for everything. I mean, if you go out there and it's the same 2 or 3 cars or the same big teams that are going to win everything, you lose a lot of interest there. So for an independent team, like you said, somebody that's worked for it for 50 years to go out there and win, I think that's a huge thing for, like Wes saying, for the industry, but for fan interest and for everything. So it's kind of like it gives that at this point, I don't want to call you a little guy, because I feel like your team is much more than just a part-time team or a small team,
pretty much.
Yeah, but it gives that hope to someone that may be watching the show.
Oh, yeah, sure.
TV, that they could put together a team and go out there, which I think a lot of drag racing has been built on that over the years.
Yeah, 3-4 years ago, we were just first round. Okay, you were first round, go up there, lose first round, pack our stuff up and go. And I just didn't want to do that.
No, it's hard to get up for that, right? I'm curious, speaking of getting up for something, there was 2 questions I have. First off, before we, while we're talking about John Medlin and his contribution to Paulie Racing and everything that you guys are doing right now and his involvement with Yanni and the whole crew, I'm just curious, have you, like, either as a driver, a person, a human being, a business owner, have you been able to glean anything from John Medlin? Like, I hear people talk about his presence a lot. I've heard that over the years many times. He's obviously worked with a lot of championship drivers. His son was a championship level driver. So what have you been able to garner any wisdom from John personally?
How much time do we have?
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, a lot.
I mean, I won't. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, first of all, he's the strongest man I know. His faith and his faith is strong. I mean, no one can imagine losing your son into something that he's given his whole life for, right? So you just can't imagine what what he goes through. But he's gleaned his strength, from his faith, and he's been able to share that with all of us. And not just the driver. He's told me a lot of things about, hey, do this a little different. How about doing this, the burnout, doing it this way? But yeah, he's helped me in the driving part, but more importantly, he's helped our team personally, and each and every one of them personally, into believing in something much bigger than just themselves, working together as a team. And I used to wonder, like, where does this guy get the strength from? But he gets it from the faith. And every Sunday when we get together before first round, every Sunday, John, we all get together in the trailer and have a little short team meeting, just not long, couple of minutes. And John leads us in a prayer every week. And he brings us all together and gives us all strength. So, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we could sit here for a long time and talk about the contribution he's made to me in the short amount of time. I mean, I've known him a long time, but I haven't gotten to work with him on this level just in the last couple of years. And he's, like I said, he's not just taught myself and Johnny how to be a crew chief and the guys how to do their jobs, but how to be part of a team to work on something that's greater than us individually.
So how much do you think that, because that is something that we see a lot, like across the board in every level of drag racing, like there are a lot of people that have the ability or the access to world-class equipment, right? But that alone does not ensure success. I mean, there's plenty of people out here that are buying nice stuff and have the latest and greatest, but they're still not able to put the whole thing together. And that chemistry that you were talking about really showing itself this past weekend in Arizona, and really as you move forward, like, how much of that harmonious, because you've been on the other side of it where there's been some dysfunction or whatever. I mean, how critical to the success of teams in drag racing do you think that harmonious, because there may be something people can learn from this, especially the many viewers that we have that we appreciate so much that are racers themselves. We've always kind of fancied ourselves here at Drag Illustrated as more of a trade journal than like a fan magazine necessarily. And we've kind of adopted some changes over the time to try to grow the fan base. But at the same time, this is a lot of racers watch this, and I see guys with a lot of different faces in their pits all the time. They're talking to a different crew chief. They're talking to a different tuner. How much has creating that, like, hey, here's my guys, here's who we're going to work with, building a bond amongst them, how critical to your program is that alone?
Super critical. I mean, how many times, you guys have been around the sport a long time, so have I. How many times have you seen rich people come in, have lots of money, and they expect to win right away? I have all this money. Why aren't we winning? I mean, I've heard stories from other crew chiefs and other teams, like people come into the sport and have not been around it and understand the real intricacies of what it takes besides the money. You know, it takes that chemistry. It's no different than in any business. It has to gel. Everybody has to gel. And I've learned that. I mean, I've been with many teams that, of course, that we didn't have that. But I will say that this team has that, and John Medlin and Johnny Lindbergh have molded that through John Medlin, teaching us that chemistry and working together as a team. I mean, it's everything. I mean, you can have the money, right? All the parts, but you still, the people is what puts it all together and makes it work, right? So the people working together is just as important as having the budget and having the parts and pieces. Is that third thing is the people, and they need to work together to have a greater goal. I mean, that chemistry, I didn't even realize how important it was until John Medlin came along. That's how much impact he's had on our team.
It's incredible to hear. And I think it's valuable for all of us to just be reminded of that perpetually, that people make all the difference. And we've seen it throughout the course of drag racing history. And this exists in the world as a whole, right? Yeah. But I mean, specifically in drag racing, I mean, you've seen, I love that conversation of, you know, these big money people that come into the sport. And if they don't have immediate success or pretty quick success, they're out the door. I often joke that typically the bigger splash you make upon a rival, the quicker the exit. Right?
Or they spread themselves too thin. A lot of times too, we'll see like these sponsors come in or these companies, and then they're all over every car instead of focusing on one car or one team or whatever. It seems like they just get kind of gobbled up and spit out, and then they're gone, rather than just being kind of ingrained in the sport.
Well, in the last 30, 40 years, I mean, how many millionaire rich guys that you've seen come and go, right? In the Nitro categories, right? It's not an overnight success. It's, you got to expect to have a long-term plan and build it that way. Look at Antron Brown, look what he's built, right? It's taken him many years. I mean, he started with DSR, which was a great organization. Don was a great job, but he learned from Don, and he's been able to take that off on his own and create his own. And when I'm talking about is chemistry, I'm not just talking about the budget that he has or the parts and pieces, but he has that team chemistry in his organization and he's built for a long time. So that it really matters, no matter what class you run, whether it's Top Fuel, Pro Stock, Pro Mod, it doesn't matter. It's still part of a team. It's a team sport.
Do you think that flies in the face of like conventional wisdom, or like I think it's a somewhat dated cliche or whatever, like not to do business with friends? I've often argued that. Like, one of my favorite books is by Arnold Schwarzenegger called Total Recall. And he has this whole section in there where he talks about how he got all this early advice whenever he was kind of becoming successful and making money and doing things, getting in movies and whatnot. And he started to have access to some resources, and all these people in his life were quick to tell him, like, hey, don't do business with your buddies. Don't get involved with your friends. Like, business is business. But I also feel like when I look around the entire drag racing landscape and I see the teams that are successful, I see a bunch of brothers and sisters in arms, people that go to dinner together, that bicker and fight, that do all the things that friends and family do. And it's funny because in one of your early interviews with Drag Illustrated, when we had you on the cover of the magazine, you jokingly and lovingly referred to your team as the Friends and Family Funny Car. Because it's kind of what it is a friends and family operation, and people pitching in and getting involved. I mean, do you think that's kind of an outdated narrative, that maybe there's some wisdom to working with people you want to be around?
It still says Paul Lee, Friends and Family Race Team. It still says that, right? I mean, I've raced with friends and family forever. And it's no different than business. It's all relationship driven, right? All my customers, the Jegs family, right? The people at Summit, Turn 5, Turn 14, all our big customers, right, of our company, we feel like they're family, and they treat us that way, right? I mean, the Jegs family is unbelievable. Jeg Jr. has helped us tremendously over the years, have helped us do better business with Jegs. And how did that happen? Because we were friends, right? And my teammates. I mean, the guys, I consider everybody as friends. Jimmo is a really good friend of mine. He was my crew chief. Now, in that instance, it didn't work out, but we went our separate ways, but we're still friends. One of the first people to come over after we won the other day was Jimmo and Nikki. Came over and gave me a big old hug, right? So, it is a big family, drag racing. Come on, all the classes, we all know each other. We all help each other out. Yeah, we want to beat each other when we're at the track, but I got to tell you, I believe this sport, and one of the reasons I love it and I've stayed in it so long is because, that's my family. Everybody at the racetrack, whether we're competing against, guys like Chad Green came over, and he's one of the first ones to congratulate me, and a lot of the other
this is the guy you just had to beat en route to win. You know what I mean? And he's over to pat you on the back. It is, man, I feel blessed to be a part of this community. Like, I really do. Like, this is such a great group of people that it's, I feel much the same every time I go to a drag race, no matter where it is, like a PDRA race or, an outlaw race or an NHRA race or whatever. It's like, it feels like going to a family reunion every single time. And there's goods and bads, right? You know what I mean? There's a couple of those guys like, oh, I'm going to bump into so-and-so.
Not everybody's your best buddy out there for sure. But
it's too small of a community. You can't burn bridges too. It's too small of a community.
Yeah,
because that person that you may have, like you said, go separate ways with, 5 years down the road, if the tables may turn and you need their help or they're back in your orbit or whatever, it's too small of a community.
Yeah, and it's great because my phone was off, right? Obviously, it was in the van. I didn't have it driving, and after the winner's circle and all that, and I didn't have my phone with me. So I get back to my phone after getting back to the pits after 2 hours of the winner's circle and interview and all that. I had 168 text messages on my phone, and half of some of them Bob Tasca, right, and guys that were my competitors, and just congratulate me. Were genuinely happy. Guys that I had just, we just beat, Blake Alexander, he told me after second round, he says, you're going to win this race. So, that community, I'm just so happy and blessed to be part of our drag racing community. It's a traveling circus, but hey, we love it.
What do you make of that 029 in the final round there? Like, we've seen your lights progressively improve. I think once you had more confidence in the car, we talk about that all the time. Like, I think a lot of times drivers, they get labeled as being late, but it's like, man, they don't believe in their mount. You know what I mean? And until they have that belief, it's going to be hard to even focus on. They don't know if the thing's going to go 10 feet. So it's hard to like laser focus on certain aspects of the run. And we've seen you massively improve. But that 029 in the final, I'm kind of leading you to it here, Paul. Like, we want to hear that you were up on the wheel to run Austin Proc.
Confidence in the car is a lot. And people don't realize it because as a driver, we're just high-speed jockeys, right? I really have no control over the performance of the car except for hitting the gas on time and and keeping it in the middle, right? Because it's a challenging car to drive. Ask anybody that's especially when they're first
staging and in the staging process, which I think you put her in a little bit deep in that final.
Yeah, too. A little bit. Yeah, but it's final round, so it doesn't matter, right? So confidence in the car is a lot. I'm going to tell you that because that's the only thing that the driver in a nitro car can control is the reaction time, right? Is one of the few things anyway. So, he, went up against Austin twice. He's beaten me twice. I know he's the best lever. Him and J.R. Todd are the best levers consistently. So I know I got to, get up on the wheel. Hey, this is what I work for. I said to myself before the final, listen, dude, this is what you've been working for 50 years. Make it happen, bro. That's what I'm telling myself. I go, this is your chance. This is not pressure. There's no pressure. This is opportunity. Everybody says, well, there's pressure going in the final. There's no pressure. This is an opportunity to win a national event against the best team out there, right? So you better give it your all and not leave anything on the table. That's how I look at it, is just don't leave anything on the table.
Well, you certainly did not. An absolutely incredible performance across the board. We'll talk about a couple of broad stroke subjects if you have a few more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And one of the things that has been seemingly a hot topic in the last 24, 48 hours has been Antron Brown did an interview with Speed Sport News, great publication. And he was just talking a little bit about kind of a call for more smack talk. It wasn't anything like but I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your stance on some of that showmanship and the corporate America presence that exists in drag racing and some of this pressure, to say the right things or whatever. What's your kind of stance on that? Because I do think we can acknowledge that this sport is family oriented. It's family friendly. It's a lot of good old boys and good old girls, but at the same time, it is fierce competition. What's your take on that stance?
Well, I don't have a big corporate sponsor as their spokesperson, so I can understand some of the guys like an Antron who are and Ron Capps, that they race for a living and they're the face of their sponsor, right? I'm the face of my sponsor, which is my company's, but I don't have any obligation to act a certain way. if I want to, talk about an opponent or do something, I can do it. I have the freedom to do it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's good for the sport. I mean, you've seen every time we've had some kind of, conflicts, whether it was Tony Pedregon and John Force years ago, and some of the competitors that have gone at it, like J.R. Todd and Cruz Pedregon, and Cruz seems to get in it with a lot of guys, so that's good for the sport. I mean, if he's okay with, if Snap-on is okay with him representing like he does, then that's cool too. But yeah, he's known for getting out there and playing games on the starting line, which gets people upset. Me, I don't care. I mean, if opponent wants to go in deep or double bulb or deep stage, I don't really care. But some people get irritated at that, and I guess that's good. They can.
Do you think it makes it any less gentlemanly? Like, because I think that Mike and I talk about this offline a lot. Like, we saw some of that at the recently completed World Series of Pro Mod, where we saw some gamesmanship on the starting line, and it was like it met mixed reviews, right?
Yeah,
we had some drivers coming up and telling us like that's bullshit, blah 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 blah. But then we've had other guys going like, hey, that's the game we play. Like, bring it on. And we're kind of of the mindset of bring it on.
It's part of the game. You can light them both at the same time. You can deep stage. You got 7 seconds. Once that other light is on, that's part of the game. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I don't really care what anybody does. I just race my own race, right? So
I think we've lost some.
I don't get mad or upset if someone wants to do that. I mean, Bob Tasca did that to me at the Indy in the finals of the call out. He went right in, and it's like no big deal. You just take your time and do your own thing, and it came out the right way. But I don't have anything against Bob for doing that. It's like we joke around about it. It's like it's all in fun. If someone gets upset, that's too bad. That's on them. Maybe they haven't been around the sport long enough to realize that this is part of the game. I've been doing this.
I think that's some of it. I think that's a lot of it. Is really that the people that haven't been around it as long or don't remember like the days, the 70s, like what you're talking about, or even your days in the alcohol ranks. That's part of the strategy, especially on race day. And then
Warren Johnson and Darrell Alderman and calling him a punk, and it was like awesome.
Yeah. We just talked about that before you came on, that exact moment.
Because I mean, I think a lot of those moments, like they're like iconic moments. Like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to pull up YouTube and notice that these squabble top end deals have 10 million views, and a video of some record-setting pass has 10,000.
And they're still looking at them 25 years later.
Yeah, we're still watching them 25 years later. So I think that there's like a lesson to be learned there that we need. People, but I do think there's like a line of where we don't need people fist fighting out here. Absolutely not. But what we do need people doing is showing emotion. I like to tell, say on here a lot that we need you, like you have done during this interview. You've let us know how much this means to you. I think everybody that watches this is going to be that much more invested in what happens next for Paul Lee, because you've shown us, and we got an opportunity to learn just how hard you've worked for this singular moment in time and how much it means to you. And we appreciate that, Paul. We always appreciate your candor. I'm curious, can you take us back to like 2013 and a Widowmaker heart attack that 10% of the population that endure that survive, and maybe thinking that this was all gone. It was not going to be an opportunity to race again.
Right. In 2016,
or 16,
midway through the year, I joined Coletta Motorsports as the third funny car, if you guys remember. Along with Dell and Alexis, I was the third funny car. Joined the Coletta team. We did a last couple of races of 2016. We did really well. I had career record runs almost every pass that I made, and it was great. Had Connie sitting on the starting line watching. It was just great to be part of that organization. And then in the PRI show, which we have our companies, we go to the PRI show at Indianapolis every year. And the day I got home from the PRI show, I was working out in my gym, and my girlfriend at the time was there. She was making dinner, and I felt like I was getting heartburn. I was working out on the life cycle, right? I came downstairs and I said, "Man, my chest is hurting. I feel like I have heartburn." She's like, "Heartburn? You haven't even eaten anything yet." And then within 30 seconds to a minute, I started losing my breath, and it felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. And I was like, I was starting to get dizzy, and I said, "I think I'm having a heart attack." And mind you, I had no warnings. I was at the PRI show, having a good old time, seeing everybody, going to dinners, going through having the events, and and I just happened to be home. So I said, call 911. I think I'm having a heart attack. So she calls 911. And lucky for me, I was home. And the biggest luck was I live across the street from the EMT center in my neighborhood. So they were literally at my house in 4 minutes from the time she called 911. And my heart had stopped. I had complete heart failure. So I had 100% blockage of the LED, which is called a widowmaker, because it usually kills, you know, 8 to 9 out of 10 people. You're dead. If I was at Indy at the show or I was somewhere else, I wouldn't have made it, because they couldn't have gotten to me in time. So they came, saved my life, got me going. And within 20 minutes, I was at St. Joe's Medical Center in the Heart Institute in the operating room getting stents put in my heart. So it was like, and I had severe heart damage because my heart did stop. I still have that damage. So the heart was damaged so much that my efficiency of the heart was down under 30, which a full healthy heart is like 75. That's your efficiency of your heart, right? Because it doesn't pump out all the blood, but 75%, right? So I was under 30. I was like 28. So that's high risk for another heart attack within a short amount of time. So they put a defibrillator in and everything. So fast forward. So I you know, went to, you know, had the Cletas. I couldn't race anymore. I was done. You know, I'm lucky to be alive, let alone worry about drag racing, right? I'm just happy to be here and have, you know, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go. I remember riding in the ambulance. I remember being unconscious, but my brain was still alert. Like I could hear everything around me, but I couldn't react. I couldn't talk. I couldn't see. And what that was my body shutting down. The doctors told me later, that's how your body shuts down, when your heart stops.
Wow.
Your brain was the last thing. I could still hear things that were going on, but I couldn't react. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk, but I could still hear everything. So, you know, I just prayed that, hey, I'm not ready to go, Lord. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready. Give me another chance. And so fast forward, I do rehab. I'm doing rehab just to make my heart better, not forget about racing. I never thought about drag racing.
Just to be well again. Yeah.
Be well again, you know, and just, you know, exercising. There's a whole protocol of getting your heart back in shape, you know, with exercise and eating right and all that. I never smoked or did drugs, so that wasn't a problem. So, you know, fast forward 2 years. So I have my stress tests every 6 months. I had a stress test that tells your heart how your heart's doing. So after about the 2-year mark, I go to get my stress test. Doctor said, hey, you know, your heart's doing really well. Says your EF is now, it was 28. Now it's up to 37, 36, 37. He goes, you could go back to normal activity. So I said to him, so, well, how about racing my car? I go, can I race my car? And he's like,
what kind of car is it?
Oh yeah, no. He's like, oh yeah, you can race your car. Yeah, go ahead, race your car. And I go, well, I think you might want to come to the track first before you tell me that. So right before the World Finals, right? So with Pomona and it's local race.
Yeah, close to home.
Timing, right? So I invite him to come to the track. He goes, oh yeah, I'd love to see drag racing. Yeah, check it out, come out. So I bought him in Dell's pit on Sunday before the finals, and I wasn't racing, but Dell had his car there, and they were warming it up, and he's like, wow, it's unbelievable. This is just the warm up. He says, wow. Yeah, I says, you haven't heard anything yet. So they gave me passes. John Saragusa gives me some passes to go up and take them up on the starting line. So I take him up on the starting line and for first round of Top Fuel, and he's like totally blown away. It's like any new fan. He was like, oh my God, he's holding his head. He says, I had no idea that this even existed, that this was even something that was a sport. He said, this is awesome. And then he turns to me and says, well, hold on a second. We're gonna have to rethink this driving part now. So he's like, well, let's put up with a plan. Let's get together and have a plan. So he put together a plan. The first thing he says, well, I'd like to, because I had a pacemaker and a defibrillator at the time in my chest. He goes, well, first thing I'd like to, see how your heart is affected by the magnetos that were on the car, right? How that is going to affect your
onboard electronics now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he said, is there any way we can monitor, because he can monitor the defibrillator in the heart with their laptop, right? So I asked Dell, and Dell's right here. He's like 5 miles from me, right? I said, Dell, they want to start the car up. He's right here. He said, oh yeah, come on over. We serviced the car. We're ready. He says, we'll just back it out and we'll fire it up. You can sit in it. And so that's what they did. The doctors came over. Actually, Krista has a video of it.
I've seen it. It's awesome. Yeah.
So we come over and we fire it up, and he's monitoring, him and the other guy are monitoring the defibrillator, and he's like, gives me the thumbs up. Okay, it's all good. There's no, the amps aren't affecting the heart. He says, now the next step is, can we actually monitor your heart, right? But we want you to actually make runs in the car. I go, well, that's going to be a little harder, right? So I had just been with Colada Motorsports and Jim O, and I'm close with all those guys there, Nicky Bonifani at the time, and they went to Connie. So the following test session, this is the preseason now in 2018, 18 test session at Phoenix. So one day, so Connie let me drive J.R. Todd's DHL car, 3 runs. They were with the doctors monitoring my heart. So I made a half track, or I made a 3:30 run, and I made a half track run. Everything looked pretty good with my heart, the numbers and everything. So they finally said, okay, Jono says, okay, go all the way. He says, it feels good, just go all the way. So on the very first full run back after 2 years, I went 390, 320 something on my 390 flat on my first run back. And the doctor's manager said, well, says, your heart rate's only like 145, 150. Says, everything looks good. So he signed off on it. And that's when I started to put together my own team.
What an amazing story, man. I hope, were they ever wearing lab coats?
No. Oh, yes, they were.
Needed to be.
Okay, good.
They were. Yes, they were.
Okay, because we need some photos of that. Tell Chris that, because that seems like a spread in the magazine. I want a bunch of doctors in lab coats staring at Paul Lee in a funny car.
Yeah, it was at Bell's shop. They both of the doctors were there with lab coats, monitoring the laptop, looking at the car warming up with their heads in their ears.
That's awesome. Hey, I've got the important questions. We got a couple important questions.
Okay.
What bottle did you open after your win? Because Paul's a big wine connoisseur.
He's probably one of our. Do you think that he's got the best red wine palate out of everybody we know?
Probably. That's why I'm trying to. I'm going to take notes. I want to know.
Danny Rowe has got a good one.
I tell you what, Danny Rowe does, and I've eaten dinner with Danny Rowe at his restaurant. And well, you were there.
I was there.
Yeah, that's right. You were there.
I'm trying to think of who else isn't.
Mongoose was there. Mongoose was with us.
Yeah, Mongoose was with us. I don't know that he's got much of a red wine palate though.
No,
he ordered
a
course
drink.
We went to Mastro's. I was going to ask when's the next time we're going to Mastro's. Also,
that's good. Hey, the MPMC show will be back here next year.
That's exciting.
All right. Well, we need to make that. We need to make that happen. That was one of the best dinners we've ever had. But so what bottle did we open after the win? We got to take notes.
Well, after the win, it was more beer because we didn't really have any wine at the track. It was.
Well, I know you eventually got into some. So
yeah, I did when I got home. Yeah, for sure. We had Charme Chambertin, a Burgundy, 2012. And I have a couple bottles for John because he loves the Italian wine, right? John's a big wine drinker too, John Medlin. And so when he comes over tomorrow night,
that's the magic.
Yeah, tomorrow night he'll come over and I'll share a bottle that I had put away for him.
Oh, that's awesome, man! I
love Italian Amarone. There's some nice Amarone and Barolo.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. I may have to call it a day early. We may have to shut this thing down, Michael, and go pour us a glass of red wine in celebration of Paul Lee's big win, man. Well, so hey, give us a couple of things and we'll cut you loose, my friend. Thank you so much for being so flexible and gracious with your time. We know you're a busy guy. Does this change any of your outlook? I mean, I know every drag racer worth his salt rolls in the gates at every event expecting to win and wanting to win, but do you feel like a newfound kind of energy for the remainder of the season? I know it's still early. We're just headed into the third race, but to have this kind of momentum early or to kind of have this breakthrough early in the season, does that kind of change your goals for the rest of the year?
Yeah, our momentum actually started, like I said, last year in the countdown.
Agreed,
That's when it really started. And we have a new car, right? So Johnny built a new car this year. So our last year's car is actually up in the trailer as our backup car now. So this is a new car. So he's learning. We have a new pipe, and so now it's a learning process of what that likes. And hey, we've only run it 2 races, and we already have a win. So yeah, I'm super stoked. But I always remember my alcohol crew chief back in the day when I won Wally's and alcohol funny car, Steve Boggs. He always told me, he says, we would win a race and whatever. He goes, you're only as good as your last race, and I always remember that. And so yeah, we'll celebrate. Our win last weekend, but when we pull in the gates of Pomona this week, that's history, man. Let's repeat. Let's do it again. And we're building on that momentum that we started last year. So yeah, I'm super stoked for this year. I mean, we're not gonna leave anything on the table this year. We're just gonna give it our best shot, and then whatever happens, that's the way it happens. But yeah, I'm super stoked, guys, for sure.
We join in that celebration, man, because it's great to see some like fresh faces in that winner's circle and have some new people to talk about and some new difference makers in the space. And so this is exciting to see you in the mix. Kind of closing question. I'm just curious, like, overall sense of the mood in drag racing, like across the board, it seems like things are positive. You know, there's been political changes. There's all these things going on in the world. A boomer SEMA show, a boomer PRI show kind of set up the year in fine fashion. Start the season strong with all these different events going on. I mean, what's your just kind of take on the lay of the land? I mean, I know you're a big part of the Professional Racers Owners Organization. It would appear that, you know, things are positive between NHRA and Pro, and there's a lot of, it just feels like some forward progress is being made across the board. Do you share that sentiment, Paul?
Yeah. And it all started at the SEMA show. But, you know, being in the aftermarket, this is part of our industry, right? The aftermarket. Yeah. And I have my pulse on our customers and what the world does in the aftermarket, because that's part of our sport. And the SEMA show, after the election, you know, on Tuesday was the election day. That was the first day of the SEMA show. Everybody was really apprehensive and a little tension walking around. Nobody really wanted to do business on Tuesday. But after the election on Wednesday, I'm going to tell you, the whole atmosphere of the whole show changed. It was so positive. It was unbelievably positive. Everybody was ready to do business. Everybody was optimistic for the next 4 years. And it rolled into the PRI show. We had a great PRI show, right? Everybody in the industry.
I thought PRI was like uniquely positive.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Optimistic.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was the best PRI show in years. I mean, I know from the numbers, like our sales, we just, people want to do business, right? They're optimistic. They want to do business. And then being part of Pro, it's just been a very positive with NHRA. We're working a lot closer together, which is a great thing for the sport. I mean, I think drag racing as a whole, a couple of years ago, I was starting to worry. But, you know, these stands in Phoenix were packed and the fans were just great. I mean, it was exciting to see, you know, you roll up in, you know, first round of qualifying, you're rolling up there. It's hot. It's really hot. And you look at the stands and it's full. It's like, man, this is awesome, you know, and it gets you more excited to race because, you know, it's part of the big family. And, you know, I'm pretty optimistic all the way around. Aftermarket, drag racing, the professional racers working with NHRA. I mean, I couldn't be more excited and optimistic than I am for this year.
It's awesome to hear, Paul. Well, dude, congratulations. Thank you so much for spending some time with all of us watching along. What really insightful interview. Loved everything you had to say about John Medlin and team chemistry. Like, I think these are stories that need to be told. People need to hear to know that there are those kind of intangible things that can actually make all the difference. So,
well, thank you guys for having me. I always love enjoy you guys, and it's always fun talking to you guys.
Well, we appreciate it a bunch, man. And I'm going to take you up on that MPMC dinner. Mike, book a flight.
Man, let's do it again. Let's roll it back. Let's do it again. Drink some good wine and have some fun.
Sounds like a plan, buddy. Stay out of trouble, and we'll see you in Pomona, okay?
Thanks, guys.
See you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Well, hey, guys, let me take a quick second here and remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top-quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them we sent you. Michael, we're here in the shutdown almost, right? We're about to get the chutes out, but let's just riff.
Handle up here. Are you over here?
I'm a handle up here.
Are you?
I'm a handle up high.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a handle up high. And do you ever do this to your kids? I'll be like, this is terrible parenting probably, but I'll have the kids loaded up when we're running down the highway or whatever, and I'll just reach up and pull the chutes and lock up the brakes, scare the shit out of them. It's funny.
No, I haven't done that.
Yeah, you should do it. It's pretty. I hit the like little space in where the sunroof is. You know what I mean? Like, it's a perfect little.
I'll say though, riding with you when you're driving, it's exciting the whole way through. It may be a relief to feel the brakes.
It might be a relief to feel the brakes when you're riding with me.
Yeah,
that's how my wife acts. At least she seems to be very concerned at all times in the vehicle with me, which is kind of off-putting.
Well, you know, you're driving with your leg, you're texting, ordering
Domino's
for the Domino's. We never know.
You never know, man. I'm just trying to, have fun, make each day the most I possibly can. Guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. What a hell of a show. What a great conversation with Paul Lee. I'm so proud and so honored that we get to do this. And we can't do it without each and every one of you. We do have a couple more. I got to get at least one more script read in here. So let's do a little bit of Q&A. If there's anything that anybody wants to talk about or riff about with on the topic of Paul Lee or NHRA, the fast approaching NHRA Winter Nationals in Pomona, the PDRA season opener at Galot, of course, Big Jake's March Mania 5 coming up this weekend at XRP, amongst a plethora of other events.
Radio, Rockingham.
Oh, we got the Radio Outlaws series returning to Rockingham Dragway.
What is the
Battle for the Thrones?
Is it the Battle for the Thrones? Or
Battle for the Thrones coming up. Donald's been putting up a bunch of promo stuff. I think we should have a whole episode dedicated to debating all this, radio versus big tire thing. Oh my
Dude,
gosh,
we spend almost every show doing that. I feel
maybe we do. I don't know, but because everybody loves radio racing. But it's going to be a big weekend for the sport.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like a grand reopening, I guess you would say, for Rockingham. This is probably the biggest audience and more eyeballs that's going to be on that place than has been recently, and they've done a lot of work.
Have you seen the suite in the tower? Okay. Yeah, I got to give some shout outs to Rockingham Dragway because they have clearly. Yeah,
it's been too long since I've been to Rockingham because
probably
I was
top
there.
5 favorite tracks in the country.
I was there multiple times a year back in the day, but I haven't been in years at this point. But it looks awesome. Got that. We got PDRA next weekend. Galot. You and I are both going to be there. It's going to be exciting.
I can't wait, man.
Where else we got? We got Pomona this weekend. And
it's so weird to hear Pomona at this time of year. I really think that I would cast my vote for Pomona being the season opener.
Gainesville, I think, worked as the season opener, but it's too early. It's got to be, you got to be willing to start your season a week or two later. I think if Gainesville is going to be your season opener, the weather has just been too unpredictable at Gainesville early March.
I've heard rumblings that they're moving back to a Pomona or even a Phoenix start. I've heard this. I don't know. I think
it's still heard cool out there at that time, but you don't have all the
rain.
Precipitation. Yeah, I was looking for the general word, precipitation, that threatens Gainesville.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I would love to see a move back to the NHRA. It to me, that's one of those things where I'm all for defying traditions and trying new things, but there are certain things that work. And the season starting and ending in Pomona, I think it's so tied to drag racing, the NHRA at least, that it seems only right that that's the way things go. But I'm not sure, man. It's interesting. All right, so let me think real quick. We'll talk about, how about that Pro Stock final round? One of the wildest things that I think I've ever seen. I
looked down, I looked down at something, my phone, and I just look up, and they're, oh my God, what happened? And both cars are just sitting at the 60 and 100 foot mark or something. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Are we going to back these things back up and give this another try, or what happened?
I almost think I would have. How funny would that have been? Hey, guys, let's try this one more time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. But apparently Greg Anderson's car cut off and died. So he was done for. So
have you seen, there's some drama, which I figured there would be, and I haven't dug into it, but I just saw one post by Sadie Glenn. And I think it may have even been on her personal page. So maybe I'm diving a little deep here, but I figured something would come out that, Dallas threw that race for Greg, because, the team, there's always the team orders, the whatever's happening between KB and Elite, and the fact that between KB and Elite, they basically have the entire field that, a lot of people think that this has happened for Erica on the Elite end, and then now Greg being kind of the leader or flagship over at KB, that Dallas threw the race for Greg. But I don't think that's happening. If you go back and watch it, I think it really just was crazy circumstances.
I just don't think it even makes sense. What would it have accomplished?
Yeah, I really don't, because the previous race, Dallas went out and beat Greg, right? And they've just been kind of back and forth for these last few races. I think at the end of last year, these guys, these guys
that's some bullshit, personally.
And I think Dallas even had a quote, and I forget where I heard this. Maybe it was just on the broadcast, where I guess it was after Gainesville, Dallas said, "Can you not let me have anything?" Or I think maybe Dallas set the record, and then Greg came the very next pair or something and reset the record. And he's like, can you not let me have anything to Greg? So these two guys are going at it. And I think everybody in the elite field's going at it. I don't think there's any
I really
stuff.
don't. I mean, I think that those conversations I think get juicy around countdown and end of, in the end of the countdown where maybe there is some games being played or maybe somebody is. I mean, and I honestly, like, as much as we all like, I think it's just human nature. Like I can't imagine a situation where like a guy that's way out of the points has an opportunity to help a teammate and maybe doesn't find a way to do so. I think I don't, and I have a hard time even faulting them for it. I know it's something that's very polarizing, but this early in the season, I think they're both going hog wild and winning every race they can possibly win. And I also think the fact that the motor zinged, he put that thing on the wood and it blew his foot off the pedal kind of tells me that he was trying. I mean, he was barely holding the pedal down, So anyways, it's a very interesting thing, but what a weird way for things to end. I was glad to see Sean Langdon in the winner's circle. I love seeing the story of a young guy who started out in junior dragsters and sportsman raced and moved up the ranks and has bounced around a bunch. And now he's kind of got what looks like a forever home with Coletta Motorsports. And to see him having success,
wasn't it Doug and Langdon in the finals?
Yeah.
It was all Coletta final.
All Coletta final.
Yeah, no. I mean, the same. If Doug, if something weird happened there, I mean, I guess we'd be talking about that too. But
Perhaps.
Those guys are racing heads up also. I think across the board, you can just kind of put the team mentality out of your mind, especially when it gets to those later rounds, until maybe just some offhand stuff as you get closer.
Like maybe a conversation can be had around Indy. Right. Or whenever people are trying to get in the countdown, and maybe that conversation can be had in Vegas when there's one race left on the schedule. But I think this early, it's so inconsequential because that's one of my big, not one of the things that I have been concerned about with the countdown and the regular season format is what we've seen in stick and ball sports where there's like so many games and they become meaningless. And I think we've got to resist that as a sport because I don't want Paul Lee winning the Arizona Nationals just because it's not going to have considerable points implications later in the year doesn't make it any less significant. So I do think, because you hear that thing we test throughout the regular season and we're trying new things and whatnot so we can get ready for the playoffs. And I mean, I suppose that exists in every sport, but I don't think it helps our story or helps our narrative.
The too fast, too tasty deal, the bonuses they've got for these various.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of bringing it out of people.
They're trying to make sure that they avoid those situations. It's kind of like load management in the NBA. Like the NBA literally had to go institute a rule that you couldn't be eligible for certain postseason awards or like the MVP award or whatever if you sit out too many games. So every sport's having to do that. You got the stage points and all the stuff in NASCAR. Everybody's kind of fighting that.
It's really interesting. A couple quick questions here as we wrap this up. Blake's got the music playing. Any updates on your vet? Still sitting in an enclosed trailer. Still have it. Probably going to have to sell it. Turns out I just don't have time to go drag racing as much as I want. I looked at my schedule and it's like every event that I want to go to is on top of an event I have to go to for work. So I'm not really sure what the future holds with all of that. Thank you for asking. Dana Turner asking, Wes, where can you get one of those Tricky Ricky shirts you have? Stay tuned to racers.club, Racers Club brand. That's one of our exclusive limited drops that we did very few of, but I do think I'm going to run it again.
Who shot that photo on that Ricky shirt, man?
I can't remember who it was.
They're probably going to want royalties.
They're probably going to want, knowing him, he's definitely going to want royalties. So, yeah, that's a Mike Carpenter original on the front of that T-shirt, a photo we shot out at Rockingham, in Rockingham, North Carolina, the track we're talking about right now.
Man, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy. And Ricky looks pretty similar. I mean, he's really aged well. It's crazy. No, I thought a great weekend for Pro Mod. We didn't talk about NHRA Pro Mod at all, but it was great to see them conclude, wrap up the NHRA Gator Nationals shirt, as well as the NHRA Gator Nationals, as well as the Arizona Nationals. Mike Stavrinos, incredible performance, like perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime performance. Like that was proof positive of what happens when you get on a roll. And got on a roll and never looked back was the class of the field.
I don't think it's a one-off deal. I think that until further notice that those guys are going to keep doing that. Todd Tutterow, that whole Ty Tutterow, they've got J.R. Gray in that stable. And I mean, J.R. Gray, I think he had arguably the second best car on the grounds. So those guys look tough right now. I know the other teams.
How about Todd Tutterow? What does this say about Todd Tutterow? I don't know if you remember, but it wasn't that terribly long ago that Todd Tutterow and the YO Motorsports group came out to Gainesville and ran well early on with a roots blower. I think they were racing with the Galat Motorsports camp at the time. It was John Strickland and Kevin Rivenbark, and they were actually struggling. You know, had some considerable struggles. They would do well in the 8th mile with the screw blower stuff or whatever, but whenever they switched to roots and stuff, they seemed to struggle. But it just proved positive of what Todd Tutterow, Ty Tutterow, that whole group is capable of. Brad Schmidt building the engines. Like, I'm not at all surprised to see them having the success they are.
JR's got the screw blower on, and Stavrinos has got the roots blower. So they're doing it with 2 different combinations. Got Mark
Really
Savage over there,
man.
too. They've got a kind of a brain trust going on, but these other teams will figure it out. The one thing, let's talk about real quick. I don't want to deep dive, but I feel like what do you think about the fact that there was 1 nitrous car and 2 Pro Charger cars on the grounds in Phoenix? Are we going to see that change throughout the year? Are we going to see a rule change? Do you think that everything has gone the direction of either the roots or the screw because it's got the advantage? Like, what are we seeing over there to maybe like kind of seems like a lack of parity right now, at least from even what the guys are choosing to bring out. I mean, we know Ricky's going to be the only nitrous car. I'm not really that concerned about that. It's the fact that the Pro Charger, we saw, I think, Derek Minholt and Justin Bond. And Billy Banica. So there were 3. I think there were 3 Pro Chargers, 1 nitrous car, and all the rest were screw blown or roots blown.
I feel like this is one of those things that I can argue either way, Mike. Like, there's a part of me that says it doesn't matter, right? Like, as long as you have Mike Stravinos and J.R. Gray and Kevin Rivenbark and Stan Shelton and these personalities and Ricky, and Ricky Smith, etc., then that you're fine. It doesn't matter what they drive. But I do think part of the magic and allure of Pro Mod is so deeply rooted in the different engine combinations that this was the fear many, many years ago, like when the screw blower kind of became prominent in Pro Modified, that it was, how many times have we heard top alcohol funny car with doors, right? And I do fear that that is a distinct possibility in the coming years, that we'll go to, a race and the only cars on the property are late model Camaros with screw blowers, which I don't think it's a future that we necessarily have to be afraid of. But I do think it's something that we need to fight against. I think it's something that we need to resist. Because
what about the turbo combination in NHRA? I haven't even really looked at the rule book to see like what's going on over there. But
I think they're still down around 36 pounds a boost, maybe less, maybe 32.
Are you surprised that we haven't seen with the way the turbo has been coming on in all the 8th mile series and in our winter series that we haven't seen someone roll out there with one?
A little bit. And I think that it's such a departure from the way they run those cars in outlaw races or at the winter series and these various other events, or that I just think it's almost like the NHRA tech committee like pulled so much away from the turbo car that maybe now they're going to have to give some back to entice people to come back to that. But it's, as we've seen and experienced firsthand, it's like this ongoing ebb and flow. I'm not sure what to make of the nitrous cars. As well as Ricky ran, I am somewhat surprised there aren't some guys, especially with
I wouldn't say that he ran that well, though. He was still behind, and he was blowing it up. They were fighting the dry air, and the screw blower and the blown cars like that dry air, so you have that. And I just think that was Ricky being Ricky and being such a good racer, especially on race day, that he finds himself in 2 consecutive final rounds against Stavrinos. So I don't know. I mean, but at the same time, we'll see Ricky go out there and go number 1 at some of these events too. I don't know. Like I said, I'm less concerned on the nitrous front. It's just the fact that all these other combinations, I mean, there used to be so many Pro Chargers out there, and I know the turbo has been lacking for a few years on NHRA, but I was surprised by that. And some of it may be the fact that you're in Phoenix, you're hauling all the way out there for that event. It's going to change your car count mix a little bit. Maybe once we come back east, maybe it's Charlotte, maybe it's some of these other races, Bristol. Maybe we see it start to even out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wondered myself, but it was really the thing that has surprised me is that, and it says a lot of different things, and I don't know that we can get into all of them, but at least first and foremost, when the lay of the land changed with the NHRA Pro Mod Series, was it where it wasn't kind of an invitational or a membership type of deal, and it became like, come pay the entry fee and you can race. I was surprised that we didn't see more people that are, regular PDRA racers or regular Northeast racers or Texas racers or whatever, come show up when it's regional, right? Like if you're one of the infinite number seemingly of pro mod guys on the East Coast, NHRA rolls into Charlotte, you're going to throw your hat in the ring, right? And we just haven't seen as much of that as I thought we would. But I also think there's so much action in the outlaw 8th mile world that it's not the motivation isn't quite there. Because it used to be that, like, if you wanted to race in front of a big crowd or you wanted to be in that, kind of it club, the cool kids club, you had to go do that. You had to go race NHRA. And I think that dynamic's changing rapidly. So I don't know that. I don't know. It's a big challenge to race quarter mile door slammers. I mean, we saw it with guys tearing stuff up. And I mean, a whole lot of expired engines happen in that second half of the track. But you'll also hear guys like Alex Laughlin, who I spoke with yesterday and was talking about, I thought he had a really solid weekend, like just making some runs, being there, being in the mix, out there with a new sponsor on the car, looking good, doing all the things that we want to see these guys doing. And he talked about how, like, man, there's just nothing like that second half of the track, like that second half of the run. And I get it, but it's also like, when I look at the show we're putting on for the masses, the 8th mile is where it's at. It just is what it is, man. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Blake, thank you so much for calling the shots. And all of you, of course, for joining us here around Drag Racing's water cooler to talk shop and spread the gospel of racing. I want to give a huge shout out to all of our show sponsors: Applied Racing Technology, Stroud Safety, Redline Synthetic Oils, FlowRacing.com, and of course our own in-house brand, Racers Club. Thank you guys for supporting this deal, and thank you guys for helping us keep the conversation going through the week. It's easy to be excited on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a little bit more so, more difficult through the week, and it's our job to keep the fires burning. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next Wednesday right here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.
See you.
Peace.